Well, good morning. Thank you guys for coming. I'm pleased to announce that today I'm appointing Carlos Muñiz to the Florida Supreme Court. We had 11 really strong candidates, and I interviewed them all personally. Two of the things I really look for in terms of who would be a good justice is, one, I wanted somebody with a top flight intellect, and with Carlos we have found that justice. He has served in a variety of capacities for people like Governor Jeb Bush, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and when you ask them about Carlos, the praise is effusive. Governor Bush said he is one of, I think he maybe even said, the smartest guy that ever worked for him in 8 years. And that's saying something, because they had a lot of good people in that administration. Pam Bondi says off the charts brilliant. She sings his praises, and that really matters to me because they've observed him, they've worked closely with him, and I think the people that have worked with him beyond just the Attorney General and the former governor all say that this is a guy who is brilliant but yet humble, and that really, I think that's the type of intellectual firepower I want to see on the court. The other thing is, he really understands the separation of powers. He understands the proper role of the court. He has worked extensively in various aspects of Florida government, and so I think he's approaching it understanding the role of the legislative branch, which he worked in at the Speaker of the House. He understands the governor's role, he understands the Attorney General's role, and I think that's a very useful perspective to be able to bring to the court, particularly because one of the critiques I've had of the court is that they have not understood their proper jurisdiction and they've expanded it beyond where they should. The other thing is I look back, and it's not been since Governor Childs appointed Justice Wells, I think 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, that we've had somebody from a practitioner's perspective go to the court. Most everyone else has been on a DCA, and I think that's certainly valuable. In fact, Barbara Lagoa, my first nominee, had really great experience on the appellate court, has done great. My second nominee, Justice Luck, he was on both the trial and appellate court. So I think that that's very valuable, but I also think to bring somebody who's coming as a practitioner into the court, I like the way that meshes with the people who are there and the experiences that they've had, and I think Carlos has done law at the really highest level when you talk about a lot of the issues that he's dealt with, and I think that his perspective is going to be very valuable. I think it's important to just reflect back on three really great nominees. Just within 2 or 3 weeks of being in office, I've already put more Hispanics on the Supreme Court than any governor in history. And then obviously we have Justice Luck, who is just phenomenal. So I'm really excited to be here. I think Carlos is somebody that has served in public service in a variety of ways. I think he really views this as a chance to serve his home state, and I just couldn't be prouder to be able to elevate somebody of his intellectual stature to the Supreme Court. So I want Carlos to step up and say a few words.
Thank you, Governor, for your words. I really appreciate it. The most important thing I want to convey today is gratitude. First and foremost, thank you, Governor DeSantis, for entrusting me with this position. In your own writing and in your inaugural address, you've articulated a clear and compelling judicial philosophy, one that I share wholeheartedly. That makes it especially meaningful to have been appointed by you. And I really appreciate the thoroughness and professionalism of everyone involved in your selection process. A big thank you also to the Judicial Nominating Commission for recommending me to the governor, and to Senator Scott for having assembled the members of that commission. Every other person the commission put forward is outstanding, and it's an honor just to have been included among those nominees. I'm so grateful to have so many of my family members here today. My parents, my brothers and sister, in-laws, my niece and nephews. I have another sister who's living and working in Kenya, and we know that she's here in spirit. And I'm grateful for my friends, so many of whom prayed for me and encouraged me. One of the great things about going through a process like this is being reminded of how many people really care about you and want what's best for you, regardless of the outcome. And of course, the best part of today is being able to share this experience with my wife, Katie, and our children, Robert, William, and Lydia. When the first of our 3 children was born, Katie left a successful career in communications. I know a lot of you here have worked with Katie, and Governor Bush and you would, I'm sure, say that she's the real star in the family. Since then, Katie's dedicated her life to our kids, including homeschooling them, and she's the rock of our family. And you guys know how much I love you and how proud I am of you. My appointment today is only possible because of the many people who gave me opportunities and helped me along the journey of my career. My first two bosses after law school, Judges Thomas Flannery and Jose Cabranes, were people of great character, and I've spent the last 20 years doing my best to live up to their example. It was a great privilege to work for Attorney General Pam Bondi and then for Secretary Betsy DeVos. Strong, brave, principled leaders who've done so much for our state and our country. I'm thankful to President Trump for appointing me to my position at the U.S. Department of Education. And of course, I'm grateful to the wonderful colleagues I've worked with in law firms and in state and federal government. The path that led me to this day really began 18 years ago when Jeb Bush and Charles Kennedy gave me the opportunity to move to Florida and work in the governor's legal office. I came because I believed in their vision and I wanted to be part of their team. Like so many others who moved here from other parts of the country, I grew to love the great state of Florida and our community here in Tallahassee, where I met my wife and where our 3 children were born. That one opportunity from Governor Bush and Chief Justice Kennedy was the gateway to so many blessings in my personal and professional life, and I will be eternally grateful to those men. It meant a lot that you were able to swear me in today. The defining experiences in my career have been in public service. I've always believed in the importance of serving our state and our country. I wanted to work for principled leaders, and I wanted to be part of teams that sought to promote the common good through restrained government, a commitment to the rule of law, and a belief in the God-given dignity and worth of every human life. Now I'll be taking on a new role and joining a new team. It's a tremendous privilege to be able to serve the people of Florida again and to work alongside my new colleagues at all levels of Florida's judiciary. In my new role, I will have a solemn duty to set aside my own policy preferences. I wholeheartedly welcome that obligation. And as I begin this assignment, I'd like to make 3 commitments: to excellence, to humility, and to liberty. First, a commitment to excellence. Together with my colleagues on the court, I will work as hard as I can to make the Florida Supreme Court a model for the nation. Second, a commitment to humility. For a judge, humility means an unwavering respect for the separation of powers. The role of a judge is to preserve the Constitution, not to add to it or subtract from it. I believe strongly in judicial independence, but judges have to earn that independence through their fidelity to the Constitution. And finally, a commitment to liberty. Everything about our constitutional system is a means to the end of protecting liberty, both individual freedoms and the right of a free people to govern themselves. I promise never to lose sight of that fundamental truth. Thank you.
I actually forgot. Judge Cabranes on the Second Circuit says this guy is like, oh yeah, he should definitely be a judge. I want him on a federal court. I mean, so really, really stellar record. I'll be happy to take a few questions. And the judge, I think, the justice would be willing to entertain a question or two as well.
I wonder if maybe you both can respond to the idea of the state Supreme Court in 2006 settled the opportunity solid decision. I'm wondering if you all view that as settled law, or is that really being revisited by the state?
Well, I'm confident that Carlos is not going to answer that question, but I'm happy to answer it. I think it's been subject to very potent, powerful criticism. I think if you look at how Florida's educational options have developed since then, we have ESAs, we have all these things. So in some ways, it may just be obsolete. But I certainly disagreed with that decision when it came down. So we'll just have to see. But I know Carlos isn't going to do that. And as I was talking to these guys, men and women, I never asked them, how would you rule on this? How would you rule? The way I discussed issues was just, how do you approach the law? What would you do in terms of determining what a statute means, what the Constitution means, all that. So I'm confident that if you have the intellectual horsepower and you have the wherewithal, the right method, and you're applying that, I may not agree politically with whatever decision comes out, but that's really not you shouldn't do that. But I'm confident that they will be well-grounded decisions, and I think that goes for Carlos. I think that goes for others. But that's not, there's a difference between, no, of course they all mean something, but the question is each provision of the Constitution justiciable? There are different things in the federal Constitution that come up where courts don't resolve because it's more of a political question. And so I think it means something, but I don't know that a court can sit there and micromanage it, because then you get into, are you going to order the legislature to spend more money and invade the power of the purchase? All these things. So they all mean something. The question is how would a judge apply it? Is it justiciable? And you obviously have to have a standard that would make sense intellectually and that people could abide by. And not everything in either the state or federal Constitution ends up being justiciable. I did not. Look, our whole national politics is being consumed with this effort to just undo the election and attack Trump any way you can. And so I'm numb to it at this point. But no, I didn't ask him about it. I know that was an issue with Pam in terms of getting this, but my understanding of that is that was put to bed. And so it wasn't anything that I asked about.
You spoke yesterday again in favor of advancing the waiting list that's for the tax credit scholarships. Do you see that as something where that's been a fundraising issue for the most part, but there's a dedicated source of funding? Is that the approach that you might propose to the legislature?
So we are going to be unveiling a lot of great education reforms. You will see an effort to make sure that these families, a lot of them are low-income families, most of them are single mothers, and being able to give them an opportunity to try to find the best fit for their kid, and so we want to do it. I don't think it's a fundraising issue. I think it's an equality issue. I think it's a justice issue. Yesterday we were down in Broward County, and this is a school that's affiliated with the Baptist Church down there, and they're doing great academically. I was very impressed. In fact, I don't think I was doing that stuff when I was in school. So I was very impressed with that, but I was more impressed with the fact that they were focusing on a lot of character, a lot of things. The kids wore the jackets and the ties, and I think that those kind of life values, I may not use biology, they may not use it, they may not use this, but they will use that no matter where they are. And I think that they're really succeeding. So we're gonna work on it.
But that program has 6 different tax possibilities for credits for corporations to steer money to. They are not steering as much money as the numbers would demand.
Well, we have a number of different. Obviously the corporate tax credit scholarship is the largest. You have 100,000 that are on that, but we have other forms. We have educational scholarship accounts for things like the Gardner scholarships. So there's different forms you can do. And I think policy is just going to be, I want people to be able to reach their full potential. And I view public education to be, if you're using public dollars, whether it's funding a school district or whether a parent is getting an account and then they're applying it how they think is best for their kid. To me, it's all public education. It's just a question of how you're delivering those, and I want it to be the services to be delivered in a way that's going to make the most difference for the most kids. I think they're very important. I think, as you know, we've been very busy doing a lot of things. I think that making sure we get our environment in good order is going to be important. Tomorrow, we'll let you all know we're doing a 3-city tour about infrastructure and transportation. We're a growing state. We're going to continue to need that. You have certain parts of the state where it's a real disaster to be able to get around. We want to continue to create jobs here and get jobs coming down. But I think if you look at being confident that the court is going to apply the law as written. You may not agree with every decision, but they're not going to go off on a major tangent. I think that is very good for us. I think that the separation of powers will be strengthened with the newly constituted court. And the founders, they didn't think the Bill of Rights was the most important to protect freedom. They thought the separation of powers. Florida actually has explicitly in the Constitution that we have separation of powers. So I think that's very important. So it's one of a host of a lot of big issues. But I can just tell you, just going through the process, it's something I took very, very seriously. Justice Muñiz and Lagoa and Luck and the other members whose names were put forward, they had an interview with, I think we had like 6 or 7 really smart attorneys. I wasn't there for that, but they were just peppering them with all kind of questions, and it was a difficult thing. And then I interviewed all of them one-on-one, and so we put a lot of time and effort into this because I think the people of Florida want to have good folks on the court. So we thank you guys for coming out.